After hundreds of thousands of years of volcanic activity, shifting tectonic plates, and the slow movement of the Earth itself, the Japanese archipelago finally began to resemble the islands we know today. These islands would soon become home to Japan's earliest human inhabitants. Although scientists and archaeologists have spent decades studying the origins of these ancient people, much about them remains a mystery. With each discovery, researchers gain a better understanding of how these early inhabitants lived. What was daily life like? How large were their communities? What kinds of animals did they hunt? And how did they survive in this isolated and unpredictable environment? In this program, we will explore the earliest known people of Japan, examining their way of life, their environment, and the evidence they left behind thousands of years ago. The first known humans arrived in Japan approximately 38,000 years ago. Over time, these early inhabitants developed distinct cultures and ways of life, shaped by the island's changing climate and geography. To better understand the origins of Japanese civilization, historians traditionally divide early Japanese history into several major periods. These periods are known as the Paleolithic, or as the Japanese call it, Kyūseki, the Jōmon, Yayoi, Kohun, and Yamato eras. Each period marks important developments in technology, society, and culture. In this program, we will focus on the earliest stages of Japanese history, beginning with the Paleolithic era. Humans have long been wanderers. Before the development of large-scale agriculture and animal domestication, early humans survived through hunting and gathering. These groups moved frequently in search of food, water, and shelter. Today, we refer to these mobile communities as nomads. Scientists believe that early human ancestors first emerged in Africa millions of years ago. Over vast stretches of time, small groups of humans gradually migrated across the globe. Some of the earliest migrations into the Middle East are believed to have occurred between 180,000 and 220,000 years ago. Later waves of migration carried humans into Europe and Asia between 60,000 and 90,000 years ago. Humans likely entered Japan through several migration routes. One route connected mainland Asia to Kyushu through the Korean peninsula. Another link connects Siberia to Hokkaido in the north. And southern migration paths may have connected Southeast Asia to Okinawa and the Ryukyu Islands. Although many questions remain unanswered, archaeological discoveries and advances in genetic science continue to provide new clues about the origins of Japan's earliest inhabitants. So who were these early travelers, and why would they traverse the barren stretching land bridges to the soon-to-be isolated island? For many years, scientists attempted to understand early human origins by studying bones, tools, and physical features. Today, modern researchers also use genetics. By examining human DNA, scientists are now able to trace ancient migration patterns stretching back tens of thousands of years. Recent genetic studies have provided new insights into how humans may have first reached East Asia and Japan. By studying the Y chromosome, a genetic marker passed from father to son, researchers discovered evidence of early migration patterns still visible in modern populations. One particular genetic lineage, known as DM174, is found primarily among populations in Tibet, the Andaman Islands, and Japan. Scientists believe this lineage may represent one of the earliest waves of humans to enter East Asia. Some estimates suggest these migrations may have occurred as early as 60,000 years ago, far earlier than previously believed. Approximately 50,000 years ago, small groups of nomadic humans began moving into Southeast Asia. At the time, many of the islands that now make up Indonesia were connected to the Asian mainland by vast stretches of land known as Sundaland. This region was rich in forests, rivers, and coastal resources, allowing human populations to grow and spread. Early humans survived primarily through hunting and gathering. On land, they hunted animals using simple stone tools such as spears and knives. But these early people also learned how to take advantage of the sea. Coastal communities gathered fish and other marine resources from nearby waters. Over many generations, some groups continued southward, eventually reaching the Australian continent, where they became the ancestors of present-day Aboriginal Australians. Others migrated northward into China, Siberia, and eventually the Japanese islands. As these populations spread across Japan, distinct cultures gradually began to emerge, and so began the Jōmon period. The Jōmon period lasted for thousands of years, making it one of the longest prehistoric cultural periods in human history. However, the term Jōmon period can sometimes be misleading. Although archaeologists group these ancient communities under a single name, the people were not all identical. Different regions developed unique traditions, lifestyles, and technology over long periods of time. In fact, the span of time between the earliest Jōmon pottery and the later Middle Jomon cultures is greater than the time separating the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza to the present day. Researchers study these ancient societies primarily through pottery style, tools, and radiocarbon dating, allowing scientists to better understand how these early communities changed over time. The first modern researcher to scientifically study the Jomon people was a man named Edward S. Morse, an American zoologist and archaeologist. In 1877, while traveling by train between Yokohama and Tokyo, Morse noticed a large shell mound near the village of Omori. Intrigued by the discovery, he organized an excavation of the site, conducting what is widely regarded as the first modern archaeological investigations in Japan. Although Japanese scholars and collectors had discovered and documented unusual pottery, stone tools, and other ancient artifacts centuries earlier, particularly during the Edo period, these objects were rarely studied using scientific methods. Their age and cultural significance remain largely unknown. Morse's excavation changed that. Among the artifacts recovered from the Omori shell mound were distinctive pottery vessels decorated with impressions made by pressing cords into wet clay. He referred to these patterns as cord-marked, which in Japanese translates to Jomon. The name would eventually be applied to the entire prehistoric culture that produced them. Morse's work helped lay the foundation for modern Japanese archaeology and sparked widespread interest in the ancient inhabitants of the archipelago. Over the following decades, archaeologists would uncover thousands of additional sites, gradually revealing the story of a culture that had remained hidden beneath the soil of Japan for millennia. Now, let us examine the people who made these migrations and what their lives were like. The early Jōmon period people left behind countless artifacts and tools, providing modern archaeologists with valuable insight into their daily lives. Among the most important discoveries was pottery. Some of the earliest pottery fragments uncovered in Japan were simple in appearance, thick, durable, and designed for practical use. Over time, pottery styles became increasingly sophisticated. Archaeologists have discovered vessels decorated with ridge patterns, nail impressions, and cord impressions made nearly 10,000 years ago, making them among the oldest known examples of pottery in the world. These early communities relied heavily on foraging for survival. Nuts, such as chestnuts, walnuts, and Japanese horse chestnuts, served as important food sources. Chestnuts were especially valuable because they could be eaten with little preparation and stored for long periods. Japanese horse chestnuts, however, contain bitter compounds that had to be removed before consumption. Archaeologists have discovered ancient soaking pits and watering areas believed to have been used to process these nuts. Other commonly gathered foods include mushrooms, wild plants, potatoes, and various root crops. Hard nuts and seeds were crushed and ground using stone pestles, grinding stones, and flat stone plates. One other plant we discussed in our previous tape makes its appearance here as well: bamboo. By the late Jōmon period, approximately 3,000 years ago, bamboo had already become deeply integrated into daily life. Archaeologists have uncovered lacquered bamboo baskets known as rantai shiki at Jomon archaeological sites. These finely crafted containers were woven from sasa bamboo and coated with a lacquer, demonstrating both practical craftsmanship and artistic skill. Historical sources further highlight the importance of bamboo. In early Japanese society, one of Japan's oldest surviving texts, the Kojiki, compiled in the early 8th century, contains a myth in which the creator deity Izanagi breaks a tooth from an ornamental bamboo comb. The fragment transformed into edible bamboo shoots, suggesting that bamboo was already valued both as a material for personal adornment and as a source of food. Bamboo also appears prominently in Japan's oldest folktale, the tale of the bamboo cutter, written during the Heian period. The story tells of an elderly bamboo cutter who discovers the mysterious princess Kaguya inside a glowing bamboo stalk. The tale describes how the bamboo was harvested from the mountains and fields and used to create everyday objects, illustrating its widespread importance in Japanese life. From baskets and tools to food, clothing, accessories, and folklore, bamboo has remained intertwined with Japanese culture for thousands of years. Its flexibility, strength, and abundance made it one of the most useful natural resources to Japanese society and will continue to make appearances throughout our series. Fishing also played a major role in Jomon life. Along rivers and coastlines, people gathered shellfish and caught fish. Archaeologists excavated fish hooks, harpoon points, and stone net weights, suggesting these early communities practiced both spear fishing and line fishing. Some tools indicate they were capable of catching surprisingly large fish. These discoveries demonstrate that the Jomon people possessed an advanced understanding of both the sea and the surrounding landscape. Hunting was another essential part of survival. Using bows, arrows, and stone-tipped spears, hunters pursued animals such as deer, boar, and hare. To create these weapons, artisans used materials such as obsidian and shale, which could be sharpened into extremely sharp blades. Archaeological evidence also suggests that dogs were used to assist hunters, making them among the earliest hunting companions in Japanese history. But where did these early people live? Did they seek shelter in caves or construct simple camps from wood and animal hides? For many years, little was known about the daily lives of Japan's earliest inhabitants. However, archaeological discoveries across northern Japan have provided researchers with valuable insights into how these ancient communities lived. As human populations gradually shifted away from a fully nomadic lifestyle, more permanent settlements began to appear. These settlements served as central living areas, where families gathered, hunted, fished, and carried out daily activities. In northern Japan, archaeologists have uncovered 17 major sites associated with these early communities. These sites are located across southern Hokkaido and the northern Tohoku region, near rivers, lakes, forests, and coastal bays. Together, they reveal the development of a surprisingly complex hunter-gatherer society that existed between approximately 13,000 BCE and 400 BCE. Unlike many early human societies elsewhere in the world, these communities became increasingly sedentary long before the widespread use of agriculture. Rather than constantly moving from place to place, many groups established semi-permanent villages and seasonal settlements. Excavations have uncovered the remains of pit dwellings, burial grounds, ceremonial locations, and large communal gathering areas. Researchers have also discovered massive wooden structures supported by thick pillars. along with stone circles and raised earthworks, believed to have been used for rituals and spiritual ceremonies. These discoveries suggest that early societies in Japan possessed not only advanced survival skills, but also rich spiritual traditions and organized social structures. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Jōmon period is what archaeologists have not found. Despite thousands of years of occupation and the discovery of countless settlements across the Japanese archipelago, there is surprisingly little evidence of organized warfare. Tools such as bows, arrows, spears, and stone blades have been uncovered at numerous archaeological sites. However, these tools appear to have been used primarily for hunting rather than combat. While some human remains show signs of violent injury and possible murder, evidence of large-scale conflict, fortified settlements, mass graves, or organized armies remains remarkably rare. This has led many researchers to believe that warfare, if it existed at all during much of the Jōmon period, was limited in scale and likely consisted of small disputes between individuals or neighboring communities, rather than prolonged conflicts. For thousands of years, the people of Jōmon Japan appear to have lived in relatively stable societies, supported by abundant natural resources from the land and sea surrounding them. It would not be until the arrival of new peoples, technologies, and social structures during the Yayoi period that widespread warfare would begin to leave its clear mark on the archaeological record. Over time, some settlements grew into regional population centers, serving as important hubs for trade, ceremony, and community life. These tribes' customs and beliefs differed greatly from region to region. However, there were no clear boundaries separating these early communities. Through trade, migration, and the exchange of goods and ideas, customs gradually spread across the islands, evolving and adapting over time. The spiritual beliefs of the Jōmon period were also very different from region to region. Many researchers think these early belief systems centered around the natural world, the changing seasons, animals, rivers, forests, and the land that sustained human life. Spiritual leaders, often believed to have been shamans or ritual specialists, may have acted as intermediaries between physical and spiritual worlds. This connection to nature bears similarities to the beliefs and practices found in many early indigenous cultures around the world. For the people of early Japan, survival depended entirely upon understanding and respecting the environment around them, and over thousands of years, these beliefs became deeply intertwined with daily life, shaping rituals, ceremonies, and eventually influencing the Japanese religion of Shinto itself. Although much of what we know about the early Jōmon period spiritually remains speculative, archaeological discoveries have provided research with valuable clues about the beliefs and rituals of these ancient communities. Successful hunts and fishing expeditions may have been followed by ceremonies honoring the animals, the hunters, or even the land itself. At several archaeological sites, researchers have uncovered the arranged remains of dolphins and other wild animals placed alongside ceremonial objects, suggesting that ritual activity played an important role in daily life. Some ceremonial locations were constructed on mountains and elevated hillsides, leading certain researchers to believe that celestial events such as eclipses, seasonal changes, or meteor showers may have held spiritual significance. Many of these ritual sites were surrounded by large stone circles. Although the exact purpose of these circles remains unknown, excavations have uncovered numerous ceremonial artifacts that offer insight into the beliefs practiced there. Some researchers believe certain objects may have been connected to worship of early deities or spiritual forces. People adorn themselves with ornaments crafted from jade, shell, and deer antler, including necklaces, bracelets, and earrings. Clay masks and human-shaped figurines were also commonly used in ceremonies. Interestingly, many of these figures appear to have been intentionally broken. Fragments have been discovered scattered across ritual sites, leading archaeologists to theorize that the act of breaking them may have been part of the ceremony itself. Many figurines were shaped as women with exaggerated or pregnant forms. Because of this, researchers believe that they may have symbolized fertility, childbirth, or protection for expecting mothers. Animal symbolism also appears frequently throughout Jōmon art and ritual objects. This tradition of animal reverence can still be seen in later Japanese cultures, including the bear-related spiritual beliefs of the Ainu people. Among the Katsusaka people living near the Yatsugatake Mountains of present-day Nagano Prefecture, snake imagery was especially common. Pottery decorated with serpent-like patterns and animal-shaped faces have been uncovered throughout the region. Some clay figurines even appear crowned with coiled snakes. Researchers believe these symbols may represent the mamushi, a venomous snake native to the mountainous region. Some experts theorize that the Katsusaka people practice snake-related rituals preceded over by female shamans. Other pottery vessels featured rodent-like faces, slanted eyes, and exaggerated facial features, though the exact meanings behind these designs remain unknown. Burial practices also changed over time. During the later Jōmon period, some communities began burying their dead alongside grave goods, such as pottery, shell bracelets, and ceremonial objects. Many burials belonged to children and infants. In some cases, newborn children and even placentas were placed carefully inside clay jars before burial. A small number of these graves contain unusually valuable objects, including jade bead necklaces and elaborate shell ornaments. Because young children could not have earned social status themselves, archaeologists believe these burials may have indicated the existence of higher status families within Jomon society. These discoveries suggest that even thousands of years ago, the people of ancient Japan possessed complex spiritual beliefs, ceremonial traditions, and perhaps even early forms of social hierarchy. Historians have not discovered any definitive connection between these early spiritual traditions and the later development of Shinto, such as a single founder, sacred text, or established religious doctrine. In fact, Shinto itself is believed to have developed gradually over centuries as a collection of religious beliefs, rituals, and spiritual traditions practiced throughout the Japanese islands. Only later, after these practices had already become deeply rooted in Japanese society, was the religion formally given the name Shinto, which derived from the Chinese characters meaning way of the gods. Despite the lack of a direct historical line connecting Jomon spirituality to later Shinto practices, many similarities remain, and most historians agree that the Jomon laid the bedrock for Shinto to be built upon. Many themes seen during the Jomon period can still be recognized in Shinto practices today. A deep reverence for nature, belief in spiritual forces residing within the natural world, rituals led by spiritual intermediaries, and respect for ancestors and the dead all remain important elements of Shinto tradition. Although separated by thousands of years, these similarities provide a fascinating glimpse into how some of Japan's oldest spiritual ideas may have endured into the modern age. The Jomon period lasted for approximately 10 to 14,000 years. It was not a stagnant or immature society, but a society with impressive technology and rich spiritual elements, representing one of the most advanced hunter-gatherer societies in the ancient world, blurring the lines between nomadic life and sedentary civilization, despite the absence of agriculture. Before we continue, we must address one of the most significant controversies in Japanese archaeology: the Paleolithic hoax committed by Shinichi Fujimura. Beginning in the 1970s, Fujimura, an amateur archaeologist, became famous for a series of remarkable discoveries that appeared to push the history of human habitation in Japan much further into the past than previously believed. Artifact after artifact seemed to emerge from his sites, earning him widespread recognition and the nickname Divine Hand. Many archaeologists praised his discoveries, while others expressed skepticism. Nevertheless, Fujimura's apparent success brought him national attention, and several sites associated with his findings, including the Zazaragi site, gained considerable importance within the archaeological community. For years, his claims influenced interpretations of Japanese prehistoric past. However, in 2000, a newspaper investigation secretly photographed Fujimura planting artifacts at an excavation site before their supposed discovery. Faced with overwhelming evidence, he confessed to fabricating many of his findings. The scandal sent shockwaves throughout Japanese archaeology. Numerous sites and artifacts, that had been accepted as evidence of an ancient Japanese Paleolithic culture were re-examined, and many previous conclusions had to be revised or discarded altogether. The Fujimura affair serves as an important reminder that archaeology, like all sciences, depends on verification, peer review, and the ability to question even widely accepted ideas. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and historians must continually test old conclusions against new discoveries. Only through careful research and independent verification can we hope to build an accurate understanding of the past. In the later Jōmon period, around the 2nd millennium BC, rains became more frequent and disruptive, destroying fertile lands and making it difficult to obtain food in mountainous areas. People progressively migrated towards shores, establishing settlements closer to rivers as soon as fertile soils were identified. Fishing villages began to emerge, focusing on obtaining resources from the sea. However, due to the distance from the continent, the northern populations adopted these cultural and lifestyle changes significantly later. They continued the Jomon lifestyle until at least the 4th century BC. Scholars suggest that this longer Jomon period may have influenced certain traits of the Ainu cultures, which inhabit Hokkaido and the eastern regions of Honshu. Let's recap. After thousands of years, the people of the Jomon period transformed the Japanese archipelago. What began as small groups of wandering hunter-gatherers gradually developed into complex communities with permanent settlements, spiritual traditions, advanced craftsmanship, and a deep understanding of the natural world. The Jomon people mastered fishing, hunting, and foraging, adapting to Japan's varied environments. They created some of the oldest pottery in human history, constructed ceremonial monuments in villages, and developed a culture that would endure for nearly 10,000 years. But change was coming. As climate shifted, populations increased, and contact with the Asian mainland intensified. New technologies, ideas, and people would begin to arrive on the Japanese islands. Around the beginning of the Yayoi period, agriculture, metalworking, and organized political structures would forever transform Japanese society. And with these changes, legendary figures would begin to emerge. In the next program, we will explore the rise of the Yayoi people, the introduction of farming and bronze technology, and the introduction of Japan's most important food staple, rice.